General Hospital spoilers teasing that Tracy Quartermaine is the one who spoke out against Sonny Corinthos. It's a revelation destined to send shockwaves through Port Charles. In an unexpected turn of events, Tracy, ever the matriarchal schemer, has aligned herself with Drew Cain in a daring plot to dismantle Sonny's hold on his empire by targeting his beloved docks. But even the most meticulously crafted alliances are built on shifting sands, and Tracy will soon discover that her new partnership harbors its own dark ambitions. In the first acts of this perilous drama, Tracy Quartermaine stands at the precipice of a decision that could redefine her legacy. For decades, the Quartermaine dynasty has navigated the treacherous currents of power, only to find itself continually challenged by the iron-fisted grip of Sonny Corinthos. Behind closed doors in the austere halls of the Quartermaine mansion, unresolved tensions over Ewing Oil's financial machinations and hidden investments have festered, leaving Tracy with a singular objective: to level the playing field. When the whispers of Drew Cain's discontent reach her ears, his bruised ego stemming from being publicly embarrassed and removed from the Quartermaine board by her own decree, Tracy recognizes an opportunity too tempting to resist. United by a shared vendetta against Sonny, she dispatches her most trusted aide to broker a clandestine meeting with Drew at a secluded warehouse overlooking the docks. There, under the shroud of night, they forge an alliance, each promising the other retribution. Tracy provides the funding and resources to cripple Sonny's shipping operations, while Drew brings his insider knowledge of the Corinthos network. Yet in the shadows, Drew nurses a far more personal grudge against Tracy. He seethes at the memory of the day she publicly snubbed him, toting out board minutes at the luncheon that cemented his removal, effectively derailing his political aspirations for the upcoming state Senate race. In his mind, Tracy's power play was an unforgivable betrayal, stripping him of both his status and his dreams. As Tracy puts the finishing touches on their plot, securing explosives, hiring covert operatives, and finalizing the timeline to detonate the first charges that will bring Sonny's docks to their knees, Drew's mind drifts back to a darker incident. The night he was drugged with ketamine, left in a haze of terrifying visions and near-catastrophic behavior. It was then, in that dangerously vulnerable state, that Portia Robinson intervened, administering an antidote and saving him from his own spiraling impulses. She alone knows the truth, that Portia, and not Tracy, orchestrated the poisoning, intended as a twisted test of loyalty and control over Drew's psyche. But Drew is determined to flex his newfound leverage. Convinced that Tracy's ruthless ambitions could extend to poisoning him to eliminate a liability, he decides to frame her for the ketamine attack. Gathering supposed evidence, a miserly collection of receipts for compounded sedatives billed to Portia's clinic, a hastily written note implicating a liaison with an unknown sponsor, Drew crafts a narrative that Tracy, fearing he would expose their dot-plot partnership, dosed him to keep him silent. He composes a pointed letter to the Port Charles Police Department and forwards it to the district attorney, his fingers trembling with the electric thrill of betrayal. Meanwhile, Portia, riddled with guilt but steadfast in protecting her own secret, watches from the sidelines. She grapples with the knowledge that her deception, born of desperation to safeguard Drew's reputation, now threatens to swallow another innocent target. Though she desperately wants to exonerate Tracy, the bonds of her unspoken allegiance to Drew and her fear of the political fallout keep her silent. The confrontation is set in Tracy's opulent drawing room, illuminated by the golden glow of crystal chandeliers and lined with portraits of Quartermaine ancestors. Drew arrives unannounced, his posture rigid, eyes ablaze with righteous indignation. He pours the accusations with a venomous edge. "You think you can play puppet master, Tracy, and when I misstep, you silence me permanently. Well, I have all the proof now." Tracy, taken aback by the ferocity of his claims, feels her blood boil. Accusations of attempted murder, an act she never committed, strike at the very core of her honor. Her voice, laced with indignation, echoes through the room as she demands justice for being wrongly maligned. In a moment of uncontrollable fury, she raises her hand and strikes Drew across the face, a sharp, resounding slap that cracks like thunder. The sound reverberates against the marble floor. Yet Drew stands unbowed. As Tracy's clenched fist unclenches, he lunges forward, driven by years of simmering resentment. His fist connects with her jaw, and Tracy's world tilts. She staggers, pain lancing through her skull. In that fleeting instant of brutality, the true stakes of their alliance and of their enmity are laid bare. Tracy, the matriarch who has weathered countless storms, finds herself crumpled against the ornate settee. The porcelain figurines she treasures tremble on the lacquered table as she gasps for breath, struggling to reconcile the woman she believed she commanded with the savage strength of the man she enabled. Before the chaos can escalate further, Ned Quartermain bursts into the room, his face a mask of horror. He springs to Tracy's side, rallying at the sight of his sister bleeding. "Drew," he roars, lunging to defend his blood. The air crackles with tension as Ned lands a blow to Drew's ribs, sending him reeling. One by one, other members of the Quartermain clan flood the doorway. Conrad, his eyes flashing with concern. Monica, her nurse's training overriding her shock as she rushes to Tracy's aid, and even AJ, silently steeling himself, ready to ensure no further harm comes to his mother. Amid the flurry of fists and cries, the fragility of family is laid bare, their fierce loyalty, their willingness to protect one another, and the painful cost of internal betrayal. As the dust settles and the echoes of violence fade, Jason Morgan arrives on the scene, summoned by Monica's urgent call. His presence, as formidable as ever, casts a hush over the fracas. Eyes narrowed, he assesses the wounded Tracy, now being tended by Ned and Monica. Despite his simmering rage toward the man who dared to strike a Quartermain, Jason's instincts as a protector take precedence. He gently but firmly lifts Tracy in his arms, murmuring reassurances. "I'll get you to General Hospital now," he vows, his voice gravelly with urgency. As he strides toward the exit, the crowd parts before him, an unspoken acknowledgement that saving Tracy's life transcends all other concerns. Behind him, Drew, bruised and humiliated, staggers to his feet. He looks toward Ned, whose fist still clenches in residual fury, and the entire Quartermain entourage, their faces a storm of betrayal and disbelief. The sight of Jason carrying Tracy ignites a spark of dread in Drew's chest. He realizes that by turning on Tracy, he has awakened the combined wrath of the Quartermains, and the vengeance of Sonny Corinthos is sure to follow. For Drew, the political ambitions he so meticulously cultivated teeter on the brink of ruin. He had sought to cast Tracy as the villain, but in doing so, he may have painted himself into an irreversible corner. Within minutes, sirens wail in the distance, cutting through the night air of Port Charles. Jason sets Tracy gently onto a stretcher, his resolve unshakable. No one touches her, he warns the gathering Quartermains, his gaze sweeping across their anxious faces. As the paramedics whisk Tracy away, Jason turns to Drew, the promise of reckoning already burning in his dark eyes. Every sinew in Jason's body is coiled for retribution. Tracy's safety is assured, for now, but the question remains, who will stand trial for the darkness that has engulfed these intertwined lives? Before the ambulance roars off, Ned steps forward, drawing a deep breath. "I'm pressing charges," he announces, voice steady but his knuckles white around the handle of his suit coat. "Assaulting my sister will not go unpunished." The words hang heavy between them, a declaration that Drew's calculated treachery will not pass unnoticed. In the seconds that follow, Drew's expression shifts, from defiance to dawning panic. The carefully constructed narrative he intended to spin, implicating Tracy in his own poisoning, is already unraveling. But the aftermath of this confrontation is far from contained within the walls of the Quartermain mansion. News of the assault and the underlying plot against Sonny Corinthos will inevitably reach the ears of the city's most formidable players. Sonny himself, once apprised of the attempt on his docks and the violence visited upon Tracy, will not abide in silence. He will marshal his own brand of justice, swift, brutal, and irrevocable. Port Charles stands on the brink of civil war, pitting old money against mob might, family loyalty against ruthless ambition. And at the epicenter stands Drew Kane, whose thirst for power has propelled him into a collision course with every titan in town. Meanwhile, Portia Robinson watches from afar, her heart a battleground of guilt and dread. She alone knows the full truth of the ketamine poisoning, that her hand, not Tracy's, set Drew on that nightmarish path. Yet her silence now imperils an innocent victim. Conflicted between her duty as a physician and her ties to Drew, Portia must choose, come forward and clear Tracy's name, igniting a scandal that could destroy her own career. Or remain silent and watch as two of the most powerful families in Port Charles unleash their fury upon each other. The weight of that decision presses down on her as heavily as the secrets that she carries. In the corridors of power, whispers of senator-level influence swirl. Drew's political backers, previously charmed by his charisma and ambition, will demand answers. If he is indicted for assault or accused of fabricating evidence, his carefully cultivated image will shatter. Yet even as the legal machinery begins to grind, a darker reckoning looms. Sonny Corinthos will not wait for indictments or trials to mete out his own brand of law. He will strike first and strike hard, not just at Drew, but at anyone who stood in league with him, Tracy included. The docks that Tracy and Drew plotted to destroy may yet become the battleground where Sonny delivers his vengeance. Thus, as Port Charles braces for the fallout, the players find themselves locked in a high-stakes game of power and survival. Tracy Quartermain, wounded yet unbroken, will demand justice and retribution. Drew Kane, isolated by his own duplicity, must scramble to protect what remains of his reputation. Jason Morgan, ever the Avenger, stands ready to defend his friends and mete out punishment to the guilty. And Sonny Corinthos, the godfather of Port Charles, looms like a tempest on the horizon, his wrath certain, his retribution imminent. The ambulance's wail fades into the humid Port Charles night, but its echo lingers in the marble halls of the mansion like a promise of retribution. Inside, the assembled Quartermains stand in uneasy silence. Tracy's portrait, crimson-streaked and still, looms over them, an accusatory reminder of the violence that erupted within these walls. Ned presses a towel to his sister's temple, his eyes dark with fury, while Monica kneels beside Tracy's stretcher, her nurse's training guiding her ministrations. Among them, AJ's jaw is clenched so tightly it hurts to watch. His gaze alternates between the still form of his mother and the wounded man who dared strike her. Outside, beneath the flickering lamplight, Drew Kane staggers from the front doors. His tailored suit is torn at the sleeve, his cheek red and swollen, a badge of honor in his twisted mind. He pauses, hand pressed to his abdomen where Ned's fist found purchase. His chest heaves, not from pain alone, but from the raw thrill of betrayal, the intoxicating rush that comes from pitting one great power against another. For a moment, he allows himself to savor the chaos, imagining the headlines, Quartermain matriarch assaulted by man in her employ. Yet as he lifts his head, he sees Jason Morgan's silhouette framed in the doorway, an immovable sentinel of vengeance. The sight steals the wind from his lungs. Jason does not speak. His approach is silent, his footsteps measured, but each one thuds like a verdict. When he stands before Drew, the wide span of his shoulders and the calm menace in his gray eyes convey more than any words could. Drew straightens, as if expecting some final flourish, some grand confession of guilt. Jason merely tilts his head. "You shouldn't have hit her," he says quietly. It is not an invitation to dialogue, but a statement of fact. Drew's bravado falters. Inside, The paramedics prepare to transport Tracy to General Hospital's trauma unit. Monica covers Tracy with a crisp white sheet, her lips pressed into a thin line. "She's going to need surgery," Monica murmurs, voice tight. Ned grips her shoulder, his expression haunted. "She'll fight through this," he says, though his voice shakes. None of them mention the possibility that this assault could break her indomitable spirit. As Jason helps load Tracy onto the gurney, Ned grabs Drew's lapels, his own fury unleashed at last. "You're going to pay for this," he snarls. "You come near my family again, I'll see you behind bars." Drew, his composure regained in part, flashes a crooked smile. "I'm already behind bars," he says, nodding toward the stretcher. "I'm the one sending Tracy to the hospital." It is the last escalation he will be allowed before the paramedics slide the gurney into the ambulance, sealing Tracy's fate in a rush of hydraulic doors. Once the vehicle departs, the hall seems unnaturally empty. Jason turns on the spot, eyes sweeping over the Quartermaines. He meets Ned's gaze, then Monica's, then AJ's. His jaw clenches. "We'll deal with Drew later," he says. His tone brooks no argument. "First things first, Tracy." Ned nods, siding with Jason's command instinct, while AJ looks as though he wants to argue, but doesn't. The fluorescent lights of General Hospital's trauma bay offer no comfort. Beneath them, Tracy lies on a narrow gurney, tubes snaking from her arms, a monitor beeping with a stubborn rhythm. Monica stands at her side, chart in hand, her eyes bleary from exhaustion. Jason leans against a sterile counter, arms folded, watching anxiously. Every so often, he steps close to peer at Tracy's face, willing her to breathe more easily, willing the surgeon's hands to stitch her wounds without complication. When Dr. Oliver arrives, Jason straightens. The surgeon's expression is grave but professional. "Traumatic fracture of the zygomatic arch and orbital floor," Dr. Oliver reports. "She'll need reconstructive surgery, but barring any internal bleeding, she should recover fully. The biggest concern is infection and trauma to the eye." Monica's shoulders relax fractionally. "Thank you, doctor," she says. Jason nods once. "Do what you have to." Dr. Oliver gives a curt nod and moves to Tracy's side. As the medical team swarms around Tracy, Monica steps back. She turns to Jason, voice low. She's strong, she assures him, though the sheen of tears in her eyes betrays her worry. Jason's gaze flickers. "She better be," he says. Then, quieter, "because if she's not, Drew Kane will answer for it." Monica nods, understanding the unspoken promise. Back at the mansion, Drew is under arrest. The Port Charles Police Department arrived swiftly, alerted by Ned's call, and has taken him into custody for assault and battery. The evidence seems irrefutable. Witnesses galore: Ned, Monica, AJ, even the butler who heard the slap and the scuffle. Drew's attempt to frame Tracy for his ketamine poisoning seems suddenly petty, a half-baked revenge fantasy in the face of a far graver crime. Detective Sanchez reads Drew his rights, his expression schooled into neutrality, though his eyes narrow as he catches the cut on Drew's cheek. "You got into a fight?" he asks. Drew shrugs, attempting nonchalance. "Family feud," he says, voice flat. "It's complicated." Meanwhile, across town, Sonny Corinthos burns with a different kind of anger. When his lieutenant, Marcus Taggart, informs him of the plot to blow up the docks and the savage assault on Tracy Quartermaine, Sonny's jaw clenches until the knuckles whiten. For years, the Corinthos docks have been his lifeblood, the source of his power and wealth. To see them threatened by the Quartermaines, to watch his own strategic interests turned into ammunition in some twisted corporate vendetta, it is an insult he cannot overlook. His rage is a slow, simmering thing, but once it boils over, there is no stopping it. He calls a meeting at the floating warehouse that houses his operations. Jason Morgan arrives, summoned by Sonny's demand. The two men stand face to face, an uneasy alliance forged over blood and shared histories. Sonny's tone is clipped, businesslike. "You were there, he asks Jason. Jason nods. I got her to the hospital. Sunny's eyes flick to the floor. Good. But that's not enough. I want answers and I want assurances. No one lays a hand on a Quartermain and walks away. Jason's stare is calm but unyielding. I'll handle it. Sunny considers, then inclines his head. You better. In Port Charles's corridors of power, the fallout begins. Drew's mugshot circulates on morning news broadcasts. Politicians who once whispered support for his Senate run now distance themselves, their statements tepid and disavowing. Portia Robinson, watched warily by her colleagues, tends to her duties at the hospital with practiced composure, though each time she passes the nurse's station where Tracy's name is scrawled on the patient board, her heart tightens. She knows the moment she speaks up that Tracy was never responsible for her poisoning. She risks her medical license and her fragile reputation. Yet every time she recalls Tracy's haggard face on the operating table, the memory presses her toward confession. At the courthouse, Ned files the official assault charge. The DA's office is full of the low murmur of paperwork and the sharp cadence of heels on marble. Ned watches as his lawsuit is processed. Quartermain vs. Kane, cause number 25, CCHE 0813. He stands, shoulders squared, as the clerk stamps the file. This is personal, he murmurs. A law student nearby glances over, eyes wide. For Ned, it is more than a case. It is a declaration that the Quartermains will not bow to intimidation. As days pass, news of the docks plot leaks too. State investigators descend upon the waterfront, their flashlights probing the rusted pilings and bullet holes that betray the aborted sabotage. Sunny's men are everywhere, quiet, efficient, neutralizing the threat and ensuring no further damage. The Corinthos name appears in every report, but the Quartermain's involvement remains buried beneath layers of secrecy. For now, the public sees a mob boss protecting his assets and a powerful family avenging an attack on their own. The reputations of everyone involved hang in the balance. In the hushed hours before dawn, Portia sits alone in her office at General Hospital. The blue glow of a computer screen illuminates her face as she types an email to District Attorney Harper. Every word is weighed with care. Regarding the case of Drew Kane, she begins, her fingers trembling. She details the circumstances of the ketamine incident, outlines her role, and names herself as the true source of the drug that nearly destroyed him. Her hands hover over the keyboard. To send or not to send, her mind races through potential consequences: loss of her job, public disgrace, the Quartermain's gratitude, Drew's wrath. But the alternative, allowing an innocent woman to bear the blame, becomes unthinkable. With a resigned breath, she hits send. Moments later, her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Now. It's from Drew Kane. Portia's pulse quickens. The secret she just unleashed cannot be contained. In that instant, she understands that choosing the truth may ignite a firestorm far greater than the one she sought to extinguish. As dawn breaks over Port Charles, its first light finds the various players braced for what comes next. In one corner, Tracy Quartermain recuperates, her spirit unbowed even as her body heals. In another, Drew Kane contemplates the ruins of his ambitions, the fragile alliances he shattered now turning into shards of revenge. Jason Morgan walks the hospital corridors, vigilant, protective, ready for the next threat. Sonny Corinthos surveys the horizon from his yacht, mind already plotting his next move in this war of power and pride. And Portia Robinson, burdened and resolute, waits for the DA's call and whatever consequences her confession will bring. In Port Charles, alliances shift like sand, loyalties fracture under pressure, and every secret carries the potency to destroy. The stage is set for a reckoning that will test the mettle of every family, every friendship, and every ambition. And as the city holds its breath, one truth remains clear. In this city of shifting tides, only those who confront their own darkness can hope to survive the coming storm.